It's time for overtime.
Now that's a tourist attraction.
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
Turn, shoot, score! There it is! All hail the new king in town!
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now with Bert Rameen on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Welcome into the Tuesday edition of Overtime. Kind of an overreaction Tuesday. We have so much news to get to. The Shohei Ohtani press conference, the reaction from that. Big changes coming to America's favorite sport. No, sorry, baseball purists, it's not baseball anymore. The NFL has approved at least a half dozen rule changes, some big, some small, some appreciated, and some left us head scratching and saying, why did we need to change that? We'll break down all the rule changes out of the National Football League. We also got the Hall of Fame game, which of course kicks off the 2024 NFL preseason and the NFL season coming up August the 1st. We have the teams that'll suit up against one another as an announcement was made today about the pair of teams kicking off the 2024 NFL season. And of course, we got the Sweet 16 set up in a women's tournament action. We also have the men's Sweet 16 to react to and preview later on this week, Thursday, Friday for the first Sweet 16 matchups for the men. For the women, it's Friday, Saturday, and you're in the right place. Tuned into this Tuesday edition of Overtime. I'm, as always, your host, Bert Rameen. Also in hour number one, USF Baseball talk. Good start to their season. Head Coach Grant Hieb joins us around 11:30. Odds roundup. I'm talking NCAA tournament odds, NBA Finals odds, NHL Stanley Cup odds, and I wanted to see what kind of movement there may or may not have been in the wake of and in the continued ripples of the Ohtani situation. Are the Dodgers still the favorite? Yes, they are. Has there been some movement? Yes, there has. We'll tell you exactly where the odds shake up, where the Twins and Timberwolves and the Minnesota Wild stack up in their respective leagues as far as title odds go, and just how close the Minnesota Wild are to getting into the postseason and to being eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's coming up here in hour number one. Hour number two, headlines and highlights. Headlines and highlights at noon today. The Shohei presser reaction. Baseball injuries galore announced today ahead of Thursday's opening day. And we'll also peruse through the opening day schedule. You can get into one Major League Baseball ballpark for under $10 right now for opening day. That's according to ESPN.com. We'll tell you where the bargains are, what it costs to get down into Kansas City for the matchup between the Twins and the Royals on Thursday, and the most expensive and hottest ticket in baseball might not be the matchup that you would think. That and more coming up in hour number two. We'll also talk NASCAR, talk Carolina Panthers, and more with former Midco broadcaster Carla Metz-Gebhardt, who now calls Charlotte, North Carolina home. We'll talk about the Panthers offseason, what they have ahead for them, and also get a brief and rare foray into NASCAR on the show. Talk about the first 5, 6, 7 races of the season, who is standing out, some dark horses for a title this year, and some big stories to follow in the world of auto racing. That's the Tuesday, March 26th show log. Let's dive into your scorecard from the sports world yesterday. 2 NHL games took place. We had Vegas win in overtime over St. Louis. That's pretty darn significant for the playoff chances for the Minnesota Wild. Vegas wins at 2-1. Their record 39-25-7. And Vegas currently occupies the second and final wild card spot in the Western Conference. Other final yesterday, Kings over Vancouver in Vancouver, 3-2 the final there. And tonight in the NHL, Bruins at Panthers, Red Wings at Capitals at 6 o'clock, Oilers at Jets at 7, Flames at Blackhawks at 7:30, Avalanche are home to Montreal, an 8 o'clock start. All of those games can be streamed on ESPN+. We promised you a look in depth at those Western Conference standings in the NHL. Colorado, Dallas, and Winnipeg are are the class of that Central Division. Pacific Division, it's Vancouver, Edmonton, and the LA Kings, respectively, in that order. And the wild card standings right now, Nashville doesn't look like they will be caught, but they certainly could be. 88 points right now. They're through 71 games in their schedule. 71 games put away for Vegas. They have 85 points. So those are your wild card spots. Nashville with 88, Vegas with 85. You got the St. Louis Blues with 80 points, and the Minnesota Wild hanging around. Might be too little too late with just over 10 games to go, but Minnesota 77 points. So right now, if you do the math quickly, they are 8 points out of the second and final wild card spot, and they also trail St. Louis 3 points behind them. Minnesota odds stacked against them. We'll get the latest NHL Stanley Cup odds later in the show. I'm not counting this team out, but certainly would need to be a huge run and a lot of good fortune down the rest of the way for Nashville, Vegas, and St. Louis to stumble enough for the Wild to make an appearance in the Western Conference of the Stanley Cup playoffs. NBA Finals last night. If you were flying high with your respective team, and you might be flying pretty darn low today because there were a lot of upsets last night. The first one down in Atlanta, where the Hawks beat the Boston Celtics.
DeJounte, head fake, 2-point jumper. It's no good. Rebound, Clint Capella. Clint gets it back out to DeAndre Hunter. A three is good, and the Hawks take a 4-point lead. And it's almost good night time to those Boston Celtics.
Unbelievable. Boston loses just game 15 of the season. Their record 57-15. And a monumental win for Atlanta right now. They're in the 10 spot in the Eastern Conference. They've won just 5 of their last 10. Not a great basketball team this year, and clinging on to that final playoff play-in spot right now with the 10 seed in the Eastern Conference. Elsewhere, Washington down Chicago. I was about to start to take the Bulls a little bit serious, and then they lose to Washington at home last night, 107-105. But the biggest upset of them all was San Antonio without Victor Wembanyama. They get a 2-point home win over the Suns last night.
Off to Vassell, 5 to shoot. Vassell against Booker. Right wing Sohan for 3 with sprinkles on it. The Spurs take the lead, 104-102. 26 for Jeremy Sohan.
Another team you just plain and simply can't count on right now. The Phoenix Suns dropped their record to 42-30. Pretty good over their last 10. But they lose to San Antonio on the road, a team with the third worst record in all of basketball, 16-56. The new record for San Antonio as they get the win without the services of Victor Wembanyama. Other finals, triple-double, of course, for Nikola Jokic. Denver dominates Memphis 128-103. Another triple-double for Luka Doncic as well. 29 points, 12 rebounds, 13 assists, and a 115-105 win at Utah for Dallas. Mavericks are 42-29. Quick correction, by the way, Jokic just shy of a triple-double last night. Pascal Siakam went to work yesterday for Indiana. They get a big road win over the Clippers. Final score here, 133-116.
Shepard to the other end and recovering nicely Harden. He prevents the shot. Out to Walker who gives it to Siakam, and Siakam glides down the middle of the lane. And I'm exaggerating only slightly when I say his ankles were parallel with the rim.
31 points for Siakam last night. Indiana 41-32. And at present for the Pacers, they are the 6th seed, 2 games better than the Miami Heat that are the first team in that playoff race at number 7. Indiana, big win last night, 133-116 on the road over the Clippers. And the Clippers right now 5th seeded in the Western Conference. Tonight in the NBA, Warriors at Heat 6:30, Lakers at Bucks same time, but you can watch the Lakers and Bucks do battle on TNT. Thunder at Pelicans 7 o'clock, Mavericks at the Kings 9 o'clock. Also on TNT. Men's basketball, Sweet 16 matchups for Thursday. Clemson and Arizona leads us off at 6 o'clock on CBS. You got San Diego State and UConn 6:30 on TBS. CBS matchup later in the night, Alabama and UNC, and Illinois and Iowa State, 9 o'clock jump time on TBS on Thursday. Matchups on Friday in this order, NC State and Marquette, Gonzaga and Purdue, Duke and Houston, Creighton and Tennessee, the nightcap, 9 o'clock on Friday night. Women's basketball last night, very entertaining night. Iowa was in trouble. With just about 2 minutes to go in the game, they were tied with West Virginia at 54. But the good news, Home court advantage pays some dividends. Iowa rallies and comes all the way back and gets a 12-2 run to end the game. Caitlin Clark on some adjustments made for the Hawkeyes.
West Virginia is, a really good basketball team, and we found a way to win. We changed up our defenses. We got big rebounds when it mattered. We made big free throws.
Survive and advance, as it's often called this time of year. Final score 64-54. Iowa moving on to the Sweet 16. 32 points for Clark in her final game in Iowa City.
I think at the beginning of the game during the national anthem, that's just something I've tried to do all year long, is like soak in our crowds and look around and enjoy it and kind of take a deep breath. And, you look around, it's like standing room only. Like the place is so hot because there's so many people in there and there's no air conditioning. And I just look around and that's when I try to soak it in the most. And then obviously the game starts and you're not really too worried about it. And then at the end of the game, I would have never left the court if I wasn't forced to get off. But I think those are the two moments that, I soaked it in the most.
Caitlin Clark, 32 points and 8 rebounds for the Hawkeyes into the Sweet 16. 64-54 the win last night. Other finals, Kansas lost to top seed USC 73-55. Notre Dame dominant win over Ole Miss 71-56. And Creighton, big lead at the half, lead in the second half as well. The Blue Jays ultimately fell last night. Valiant effort against second seed UCLA 67-63. Other area score, Indiana over Oklahoma 75-68. You talk about Caitlin Clark and you realize she is the biggest star in women's collegiate basketball. One of the other stars, though, is Paige Beckers. She guides her UConn team into the Sweet 16 last night with another big game. Here's a jumper from the contest.
Beckers, little hesitation and hits. Big-time players step up in big-time moments. Paige Beckers showing you who she is.
Big night for Beckers and the Huskies, 72-64 winners over Syracuse. And legendary head coach Gino Auriemma says Beckers is the best player in the country.
We have the best player in America. And, just saying that because the numbers in this world of analytics, the numbers say that she is.
Is it just the numbers? Or are you trying to ruffle some feathers, Gino? I want to get it clear there. I think Caitlin Clark is the best player in the country. Paige Beckers, absolutely fantastic. And if Clark wasn't around or prior to her star shining so bright, Beckers, one of the many great young stars in collegiate women's basketball, not taking anything away from her. Personal opinion, of course. It's Caitlin Clark for me right now in women's college hoops. Sweet 16 begins on Friday for the women. Oregon State, Notre Dame, 1:30 on ESPN. 4 o'clock on Friday, Indiana, South Carolina. 6:30 on ESPN Friday, NC State and Stanford. Gonzaga and Texas takes us home on Friday night. Saturday matchups, LSU and UCLA. Colorado and Iowa, that's 2:30 on Saturday on ABC. Baylor, USC, and Duke and UConn takes us home on Saturday night, 7 o'clock on ESPN. A reminder, we got USD Coyote women's basketball coming up tonight from down in Vermillion. 7 o'clock is the jump time. Northern Arizona is the opponent. Get you a preview of that game very shortly here on the show. NFL news to get to. Again, the NFL draft is now officially under a month away. Can't wait for it. Coming up from Detroit this year, we heard from Ryan Poles yesterday on the show, general manager of the Chicago Bears, about Caleb Williams and some praise he has for the USC signal caller. How about the coach in the Windy City? Here's Matt Eberflus on what he gleaned from Williams' pro day.
Biggest takeaway is that you can see the arm talent on the film, and you can see it there in person. And that was the biggest takeaway. What I loved to see was that the interaction with the other players. You can see that, and we talked to every person that was on that team. At the Senior Bowl, we interviewed them. We interviewed them at the pro day. We talked to those guys at the dinner, and you can certainly see that those players love him and respect him and what he's brought to that program.
That's Chicago Bears head coach Matt Eberflus. Now, Adam Schefter has some news that might not sit well with Vikings fans. It might just sit as a, well, duh at this stage, but quarterbacks often rifle up the draft boards. J.J. McCarthy was kind of a late first, second round guy a couple weeks ago, got into the top 10, top 15, and now looking to be a top 5 pick according to Schefter.
I think top 5 is realistic right now. That's what I would say right now. And let's see how high it does go. But top 5 sounds like it's realistic, increasingly realistic. Whether or not that fully happens, let's see how the next month plays out.
ESPN NFL analyst and reporter Adam Schefter there. NASCAR race coming up this weekend, Sunday at 6 o'clock at Richmond, and PGA Tour Golf Texas Children's Houston Open runs Thursday through Sunday this week and weekend. South Dakota State swept an Interstate Series doubleheader presented by First Interstate Bank this past Thursday. Two standouts on the day, Mia Jarecki and Tori Kanishi, were chosen as the Summit League's Ticket Smarter Peak Performer and Pitcher of the Week, respectively, on Monday by the conference. Jarecki earned her first career Summit League weekly honors, while Kanishi was recognized for the second time this season and the 15th time of her college career. Congratulations to that duo. More on that at GoJacks.com. More accolades for the Jackrabbits. South Dakota State right-handed pitcher Nick McKay was also honored for the second Monday in a row as the Ticket Smarter Summit League Peak Pitcher of the Week. In his March 22nd outing against St. Thomas, McKay pitched eight shutout innings in a 1-0 Jackrabbit win. Senior from Carlisle, Iowa, McKay struck out 8 while allowing 3 hits, 1 walk, and hit 1 batter in the win. South Dakota State 11-12 overall. Nick McKay back-to-back Peak Pitcher of the Week for the Summit League. South Dakota women's basketball plays host to Northern Arizona in the second round of the WNIT tonight at 7. It's at home inside the Sanford Coyote Sports Center in Vermillion. The game will be live streamed on the Summit League Network, available via the Midco Sports app. If you're local or you want to listen to some great radio coverage, Jerry Pelesci on KVHT 106.3 locally or on that free Varsity Network app. South Dakota 22-12, coming off a first-round win over UC Riverside 72-57. More on the Lumberjacks. Northern Arizona 25-9. They received a bye to the second round of the WNIT after finishing as the runner-up in the Big Sky Conference. 25 wins, a single-season program record for the Lumberjacks. Again, that tip-off time, 7 o'clock tonight from the Sanford Coyote Sports Center down in Vermillion. USF women's basketball, along with head coach Travis Trapphagen, are excited to announce the addition of transfer forward Abby Phipps. This was announced last week, but the official article put up at the Cougars website as of today. Phipps joins USF after spending the past 4 seasons at rival Augustana. The 6-foot senior, 3-time NSIC All-Academic Team of Excellence member and a CSC Academic All-District Team member. On the court, Phipps recorded 534 career points with the Vikings, averaging 6.1 points per game over 87 career games. Native of Harrisburg, South Dakota, shot 38% from the field, 20% from beyond the arc, and 70.6% from the foul line, averaging 3.7 rebounds per game as well. Abby Phipps changing uniforms here in Sioux Falls, moving from Augustana to join the USF Cougar women's basketball program. Now let's finish up your Reliabank headlines of the day with this news from the NFL. At the moment, this is according to Pro Football Talk at NBCSports.com. At the moment, Sam Darnold is atop the Vikings quarterback depth chart. A month from now, that might not be the case if the Vikings draft their quarterback of the future, but head coach Kevin O'Connell says he's quote-unquote confident that Darnold could lead his team. O'Connell told the NFL Network, "I think his best football is ahead of him because of how he's handled the last couple years, whether it's going 4-2 down the stretch in Carolina in 2022, or when you turn on the tape of his work in San Francisco, you can tell Kyle, Brian Greasy, the quarterback's coach, they did a great job in the next phase of his career, fundamentals, techniques, things that you go to see growth. I'm excited about getting Sam on the team." That's a quote from Kevin O'Connell. And again, I sure hope his best football is ahead of him because I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm not trying to beat up the guy or talk down about his career. Sam Darnold is a bust. He has been a bust. He hasn't been good at any stage of his NFL career, and he should be a backup quarterback, and that's likely what he's going to be in Minnesota. Is he a good insurance policy? Sure. Is he expensive, more expensive than I would have liked my team to pay? Sure. $10 million 1 year for Sam Darnold seems pretty pricey. But the hope for Minnesota Vikings fans, as it should be, is you get a rookie quarterback in there. Maybe he starts week 1. Maybe it's Sam Darnold for the first quarter of the season. We'll wait and see. But Sam Darnold should not be the long-term plan for a season or more for the Minnesota Vikings at the quarterback position. There are big changes coming to the NFL, and I mean big. A lot of different rule changes. Some of them make too much sense, including finally the ability to review if the play clock was expired at the point of a snap. We've seen too many big plays, too many big moments in a game, a big third down, a big fourth down, a big touchdown where the game clock had expired. That's about to change and much, much more in the NFL. We'll round you out and get you filled in on all of the rule changes from the NFL meetings next on this Tuesday edition of Overtime.
Don't miss a moment of local college and pro sports action. Stay connected and download the app for Overtime on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO.
Right back with you on this Tuesday edition of Overtime. As you heard a couple weeks ago, I have a hard time when ex-Packers depart and immediately join the Minnesota Vikings, but oh, how the tides have turned today on the show, because for the first time in a little while, the Packers did sign Eric Wilson, former Viking, not immediately following his Viking tenure, but for the first time in a while, the Green Bay Packers are signing an ex-Minnesota Viking right following his departure from the team. The Green Bay Packers were expected to bring in some sort of competition at kicker to go along with now second-year kicker Anders Carlson. Couple big missed kicks throughout the season. Carlson was an issue down the stretch, certainly not ready to completely give up on the young man, but competition was needed, and now it's a big-name competitor coming into town as the Green Bay Packers are signing veteran kicker Anders Carlson, who, of course, played with the Minnesota Vikings, holds the NFL record for game winners in a season with 5, Vikings record for longest field goal in franchise history with 61, and also led the NFL in touchback percentage in 2021. Anders Carlson liked the opportunity, according to his agent Brett Tessler today on Twitter. Now, there's a lot of rule changes that we need to get caught up on, as well as bylaw changes and other things coming to the NFL. We'll try to get through these as quickly as possible. First things first, yesterday we told you about the completely and totally subjective nature of the hip drop tackles that are being banned. I'm all for safety. I just think this is going to be an enforcement nightmare. And next year we're going to be talking about, hey, let's review these things if, not when, if it becomes out of control. I've also had strong opinions about certain rules in the past that ended up not being a crazy huge deal. Kind of similar to the runner crown of the helmet rule that we saw a couple years ago that everyone was concerned with. And then we watch football games and it has rarely ever been called on an offensive player lowering the crown of the helmet to initiate contact. Here's some of the rule changes. Coaches can make a third replay challenge if either of their first 2 challenges are successful. Other rule changes that have been approved. Replay can now be used to overturn a ruling that a quarterback was down or out of bounds before throwing a pass. Common sense, should have been approved a long time ago, as should this, and my goodness, this is big news. Replay can now be used to determine whether the game clock expired before the ball was snapped. There has been at least 5 to 10, maybe as many as 15 big crucial moments that everyone comes in on a Monday following a weekend and say, hey, my team got jobbed. Did you see that third down that led to the touchdown that won the game? The game clock was expired by at least a second or 2. It was awful. Those days are gone. Replay can now be used to determine that. The question is, do you have to burn a challenge on that? Does it come from upstairs? Does it apply the 2 minutes inside the final 2 minutes of the half rule? We'll wait and see. Also, more on this in a moment, but kickoff rules have changed. We've got a brand new kickoff return in the National Football League. I really like the traditional kickoff, but it simply didn't exist anymore. The numbers and the percentages of kicks returned in the NFL paled in comparison to those in college football, and really paled in comparison to those of the XFL or other football leagues. This is really progressive. This is pretty darn cool. And welcome back to the NFL kick return specialist. My Green Bay Packers re-signed Keyshawn Nixon, and he just became so much more valuable overnight in the NFL. Also, a couple other approved bylaws this year. The NFL trade deadline finally has been moved just a little bit, 1 week, to the Tuesday after week number 9. It still is way more towards the middle of the season than it is in the major other sports leagues in our country, but the trade deadline has moved initially a 1 week beyond where it was because it never moved following the expansion of the 16-game season to 17 games. Also, each club may designate a maximum of 2 players for return when they're placed on injured reserve on the final roster cutdown day of the preseason. And lastly, teams may elevate a bona fide quarterback an unlimited number of times from their practice squad to the active list to be their emergency third quarterback. So, the nuts and bolts, the cliff notes of this all, a lot of good moves here, a lot of common sense moves, a few moves that really move the needle, including the fact that you can finally review if the play clock was dead, and also you can finally have a new kind of kickoff in the NFL. I'm still waiting on overtime. As for what is next, I think it's overtime, and I also think it's that archaic fumble through the end zone rule. There's all sorts of different opinions there. Should the defense get the football? Should the offense be backed up? Should the offense get the ball where they fumbled it? I don't think that's the right answer. But those are the things that are on the horizon for next year. Is the fumble through the end zone rule, maybe some adaptation and change to overtime, at least in the postseason. We'll wait and see. And one other additional note here from the NFL before we go to break. For the upcoming preseason, the NFL will expand the use of Hawkeye video technology. If you ever watch tennis, it is magical. In or out, and you can find it out in just a snap of the fingers. That quickly if the ball is in or out. They're going to try to do this with a football and see if they can get some advantages and see what it is based on the human error spotting of the football from 20, 30 yards away, sometimes in a rainstorm, windstorm, snowstorm, or other kind of storm. For the upcoming preseason, the league will expand the use of that technology in the coach's booth in preparation for full implementation for the 2025 season. Any more tech we get as far as ball spotting goes and metrics and analytics, I'm all for. I don't want robots to officiate the games, but if we can absolutely know exactly where the football is as opposed to some 50, 60, 70-year-old men running from the sideline in the frigid cold with their arm in the air, I'm all for it. Sign me up for some tech advancements in the National Football League. Still other NFL news to get to, some transactions of note, and the Hall of Fame game, Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans. August 1st to kick off the NFL football season. When we come back, it's time to talk college baseball. USF Baseball head coach Grant Hieb joins us next on this Tuesday edition of Overtime.
It's so can go. Download the free app now. This is ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Off and running on a Tuesday edition of Overtime. Appreciate you tuning us in as always. ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. I know the current weather conditions outside don't really feel like baseball weather, but we're off and running with the college baseball season. Major League Baseball opening day is Thursday. Minnesota Twins baseball, always your home right here on ESPN Sioux Falls. Twins in Kansas City, 2:30, the broadcast start time on Thursday right here on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. Little closer to home now, though, as we go to the ESPN hotline to talk University of Sioux Falls Cougar baseball with head coach Grant Hieb. He joins us now on the ESPN hotline. Coach, good start to your season for your crew. How you guys doing today?
We're doing all right. Yeah, like you said, not a bad start. Kind of knew some weather was going to come. You don't go through a winter like this in South Dakota without getting some kind of storm late. So, hopefully it'll be gone in a few days. We got St. Cloud coming to town. So, yeah, it's been a good start. But, yeah, we're definitely we got some work in front of us.
Talking USF Cougar baseball, head coach Grant Hieb joins us on the ESPN hotline. Overall record 13-8, 7-5 in the conference. And as coach mentioned there, St. Cloud State coming to town, originally scheduled Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but now trending towards a Friday, Saturday doubleheader. We'll talk about that matchup here in just a moment. But coach, when you look at your record, you look at your output of your team, both in runs scored, pitching, everything combined, 13-8, 7-5 in the conference. What are a few highlights, and how pleased are you with the overall start to the season?
Overall, pretty pleased. I mean, pitching night and day from last year. Starting pitching has been way better. Got some transfers, got a freshman, basically kind of got a whole new pitching rotation, to be honest, and it's been good. One of the guys leading it, he was pitcher of the week about a month ago, was Owen Wedge, kid from Wisconsin that actually started at St. Cloud for a year and then transferred in this past year. And I know he's looking forward to throwing against some of his buddies from St. Cloud this weekend. He's been really good for us. And Jake Ammon, kid from Brookings, who went to Dakota County Tech for a year, he transferred in also in the summer, and he's been one of our best starters. And so we've been having some really good pitching. Last week, Reese Gaber, who's probably our ace, went into the seventh inning with a perfect game against Northern State. So, yeah, starting pitching just makes a world of difference. It makes your bullpen that much better when you don't have to run through guys. And right now we're playing 4-game sets, and so it really shows the depth in your pitching staff. And I think it's a big reason why we're 7-5 right now and in a lot better position than we were the last couple of years.
Most recently for the USF Cougar baseball team, they took 3 of 4 games against Northern State, 3-1, 6-2, dropped a game 4-1, and then won the final matchup 9-2. That was Thursday and Friday of last week. I know it's really early to talk about the overall quality of the conference, but what has stood out about the first 12 games your team has played within the conference?
I mean, it's a lot of parity. Teams are closing the gap on the top teams. I feel like any given day teams can win. I mean, the pitching overall in this league has been getting better and better in my 8 years as head coach, and now it kind of just comes down to who can execute. I've been kind of upset with my offense. We returned a ton of guys, and we just haven't had the approaches and put together at-bats like I think we are capable of. And so I feel like that's kind of our biggest thing to get over the hump. But, I mean, playing Crookston, Duluth, Northern already now, like, all these teams have a chance to get in the tournament. It's going to come down to, I mean, schedule can play a part in it too. We have 4-game sets right now. Then towards the back part of the season, we go to 3-game weekend series and 2-game midweeks. And so, playing a top team for 2 games rather than a 4-game series can definitely help a team one way or the other. So I don't know. I mean, it's a little early to kind of see, it's just some teams have played 8 games, some played at 4. So it's kind of early to tell who's going to be where, but you can tell the teams that can pitch it, and they're kind of starting to separate themselves. So I don't know. It's going to be a fun season because I think there's going to be a lot of teams fighting for those last few spots because top 8 out of our 14 get into the conference tournament.
Talking college baseball, USF Baseball head coach Grant Hieb is our guest here on the Tuesday edition of Overtime. We talked about what's clicking. Obviously, the pitching has been pretty darn fantastic for your crew. As for what needs to improve, we talked about the batting order, the lineup. You look at the statistics, you look at the overall run totals, Coach. You guys have played 21 ball games, 16 of those games, win or loss or otherwise, your team has scored 5 or more runs. So kind of, if you were to break that up a little bit in terms of what needs to improve specifically with your team on that offensive side, what are the things that you'd like to see improve from your order?
I don't know. I think some of it's just learning how to win. I mean, we've had instances where getting late in the game, we're trying to get in their bullpen, they'll walk a guy and we'll go up, swing first pitch and pop up to center.
Yeah.
And the hitter will be, it was a fastball. Well, yeah, you're going to get a fastball again at some point in this account. I guarantee it. Like, we need to get on base. That's how you win. And so I just feel like just having a better approach and just kind of, I mean, hitting's contagious too. And we just haven't had anybody really get hot yet. And so it could be a good thing, to be, I'm always trying to get us playing our best ball at the end and pushing to get better all year. And so I'm hoping at some point we do start, getting over the hump and playing better because to win these 4-game series, it is nice to hang a 10, 12 spot a game and take the ease off your pitching staff where you don't have to have high leverage innings every game in the back end. And So I don't know. It's just, and we also have a really good freshman pitching staff. So we've been trying to kind of weave these guys in too, and to get them in games where they're a 5-4 run cushion is a big difference than 1 or 2 runs where you make one mistake and the game's tied up, you know? And so, yeah, I just feel like we just haven't really got to where we can get offensively. And like I said, I think it's just a matter of a couple guys getting hot, and I don't know, it's just hitting becomes contagious, you know, and the guys get going, it can help the whole team.
Good start to the season so far for USF Cougar baseball. 13-8 the record, 7-5 in conference play. Coach, I know that we had a schedule change. Can you tell us, has it been confirmed yet, the start times for the ball games against St. Cloud coming up this weekend?
Yeah, Friday we're playing doubleheader. First game will start at 1, and then Saturday we have a doubleheader as well, and that game will start at noon. Okay.
So looking forward to the matchup against St. Cloud State. Lastly, before we let you go, we have you on opening day coming up just 2 days away on Thursday. Where do you feel like you're at with Major League Baseball? Do you have a favorite team? Do you like their chances? Are you in on the Dodgers? Do you like the Yankees? Where do you stand right now with Major League Baseball ahead of opening day, Coach?
Well, this is kind of sad to say. I'm a Dodger fan, and I didn't even know we had opening day a couple days ago because I've been so busy with my own team.
Yep.
But I did my fantasy draft last night, and I had the first pick, and so I got Acuna, and so I'm going to be a Braves fan a little bit this year too. But no, I'm excited. I've already looked at the Twins schedule. I love getting up there and taking my boy to a game or two, and so yeah, I'm just excited for Major League Baseball to get rolling. It's the best time of the season. But yeah, to be honest, I haven't paid enough attention. I know we spent millions and billions of dollars to put together this championship team, and so I know the expectations are high. But no, I was more of a fan in the 90s when we were getting Rookie of the Year, and trying to build it like that. But I get it, the game's changed. And so, no, I don't really care. I just like to watch good baseball, to be honest.
Hey, we can't wait for it. 2024 Major League Baseball opening day coming up on Thursday. USF Baseball underway Friday and Saturday. Home for doubleheaders each day to St. Cloud State. More on that, USFCougars.com. That's Coach Grant Hieb. Coach, always a blast to have you. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it, Bert. You have a good one.
All right, you as well. That is USF Baseball head coach Grant Hieb. Really good start to the season for the USF Cougars right now, 13-8. And in the conference, 7-5 overall, and they can score some runs. But as you heard Coach there moments ago, he's very impressed with his pitching so far this year to start it out. 13-8, 7-5 in the conference. They got 4 total games against St. Cloud State. Doubleheader starting at 1 o'clock on Friday and noon on Saturday. More information, that schedule will be updated in due time. USFCougars.com on a schedule change for the weekend. That is the segment there. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about Major League Baseball with the Dodgers in the news. Obviously, they've got the best odds to win the World Series, but have they changed? They have. We'll let you know who's second, third, fourth, and where the Minnesota Twins are in the latest World Series odds. And we're going to dive into the Sweet 16. Who's undervalued, overvalued, who's sleeping and sleeping on in the NCAA Tournament odds roundup coming up next on this Tuesday edition of Overtime.
College hoops and NBA basketball, the NFL and Major League Baseball. It's all here on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Bert Rameen right back with you to wrap up hour number 1 on a Tuesday. By the way, coming up on Thursday is opening day for Major League Baseball. Minnesota Twins down in Kansas City doing battle with a team looking to take their spot at top of the AL Central this season. Twins opening up against Kansas City Thursday as well as throughout the weekend, Saturday and Sunday against Kansas City before they head to Milwaukee for a matchup on Tuesday. We are always your home for Minnesota Twins baseball right here on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. Broadcast start time Thursday, 2:30. Reason I bring it up, we're going to get to the latest Major League Baseball World Series odds in a moment, but the reason I bring it up is because tomorrow is a really big day on the show. You got the identity crisis, and each and every week you can win a gift card to the original Pancake House if you can tell me what sports figure I'm talking about. But now tomorrow, Friday parlay, next week, the week after that, the month after that, and the month after that. I got Minnesota Twins tickets to give away, people. Starting tomorrow, you could win a 4-pack of Minnesota Twins tickets for opening weekend at home at Target Field. You heard it here first. Wednesday, Friday. That's the High Noon Showdown and the Parlay. You could win Twins tickets beginning this week for this season on Overtime. And this week in particular, the tickets are for opening weekend at Target Field, including some Budweiser deck tickets that you can't find anywhere. Unbelievable experience. I hope we get them hooked up into the right hands and you go out there and have yourself a whale of a time for the home opener for the Minnesota Twins just a couple weeks away. They open the season on Thursday, but we open up your chances to win Twins tickets tomorrow on Overtime. Now for your odds roundup. Yesterday we dove in to the NBA odds. We'll touch on those again quickly here first. Boston, still the odds-on favorite, plus 200. Denver, plus 300. An honest question here. Everything else equal. Who you taking, Boston or Denver? You're right. It is Denver. But everything else equal doesn't include the road that they have to go through to get to the NBA Finals, and that is, in my opinion, the reason that the odds are what they are. I don't think that Vegas has as much respect for the East as they do in the West, and I think Denver has a lot of potential gauntlet opponents, including the Timberwolves and others, to face in the Western Conference. But Boston is your favorite at plus 200, Denver plus 300, Clippers, Bucks, Suns in the top 5, Thunder, Mavericks in the top 7, and then tied for the 8th best odds, Philadelphia and Minnesota. Both of those teams have something in common that ain't good. They're really good teams, but they're missing one of their best players, and in Philly's sense, their best player, and they're hoping that they get them back and they are themselves in the early portion of the postseason. So perhaps those two teams undervalued. Rounding out the top 10, Sixers and the Wolves are tied for 8th. Your 10th ranked team, 10th team best odds, Lakers tied with the Knicks and the Heat at plus 3,500, Timberwolves plus 3,000. Right now for your NBA Finals odds. NHL Stanley Cup odds, it's the Florida Panthers again. They're tied atop the odds, plus 650 with Carolina, Colorado at plus 700, Edmonton at plus 750. You got the Rangers and the Stars, the Bruins, and the Golden Knights. Then a little bit of a line of demarcation between the next series of contenders, Vancouver, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Tampa Bay. Minnesota Wild have fallen way far down on the latest odds. They're roughly, let's call it 20th in the latest odds, and they are now looking to not be eliminated from the NHL postseason in due time. But it's looking like that eventuality might be coming for the Minnesota Wild. They need to have a near-perfect stretch the rest of the way, and they need a couple of teams, Vegas and St. Louis, to stumble as well. St. Louis Blues, marginally better odds than Minnesota. They have plus 20,000 odds to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup, where Minnesota plus 25,000 right now. NCAA men's tournament odds right now, UConn, Houston, Purdue, Arizona. Those are the four most likely, and UConn a heavy favorite at plus 210. Houston second best odds at plus 500 for reference. Other teams in the top 10, North Carolina, Tennessee, Marquette, Iowa State. Then you got Duke and Gonzaga rounding out the top 10. Your long shots, your bargain bin programs. One of these programs is going to make it to the Final Four. They just have to, right? Creighton, Alabama, Illinois, San Diego State, Clemson, and North Carolina State. I love Creighton. I really do. I think they've got the tools to get there. I also like what Illinois has put together, and I told you, North Carolina State, they're coming. They're playing great basketball, and March is about a lot of things. But it's about maturity, and it's about playing your best basketball at the right time, and the hot team can continue to stay hot throughout the tournament. NC State was not given a chance to win the ACC tournament. They did. They weren't given a chance to win in the first round. They did. They weren't given a chance to win in the second round. They did. And lo and behold, we're here. NC State, big opportunity in the near future to punch their ticket to the Elite Eight. And maybe, just maybe, they're dancing as Cinderella as an 11 seed into the Final Four. Those are your latest odds there. NC State, the longest of long shots at plus 9,000. But I do like the Wolfpack right now, not to go to the Final Four, not to win the Natty. I've got them in my Elite Eight, though. You heard it here first. Women's odds right now, South Carolina a heavy favorite, minus 150, followed by the Iowa Hawkeyes plus 650, LSU Tigers plus 800, Iowa and LSU in the same region, UConn 4th, Texas 5th. Throughout the top 10, Stanford, USC, UCLA, Notre Dame, and North Carolina State again. Wolfpack have the 10th best odds. Longest shot remaining, Duke Blue Devils and the Colorado Buffaloes. Similar odds to Gonzaga. Those three teams are your long shots in the women's bracket. And now we look at the World Series odds because of the Shohei situation. The speculation, the investigation, the comments that he had yesterday, has it moved the needle? Has it moved the odds? Yes, it has. The Dodgers are still the favorite. They've got odds of plus 350 to win the whole dang thing. I don't remember exactly how low it got, but it was a little bit more of a bargain or a little bit more of a sure thing rather than it is now. Dodgers plus 350, followed by the Braves at plus 450, Astros plus 750, Orioles and Yankees in the top 5. Phillies, Rangers, Mariners, Twins with the 9th best World Series odds, technically tied for the 8th best odds with Seattle, and then Toronto in the top 10. My Chicago Cubs right there, 11th best odds to win the World Series this year. As we go to break, as that's your odds roundup here on Overtime, I told you moments ago the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans will be duking it out in the first preseason game, better known as the 2024 Hall of Fame game. They always like to match the team to the players getting inducted. You got Andre Johnson, the Texans wide receiver, going into the Hall of Fame that weekend, and you have a trio of former Chicago Bears, Devin Hester, Steve McMichael, and Julius Peppers. So for you Chicago Bears fans out there that might be looking for something to do over the summer, circle that first weekend in August. August 1st is a Thursday. That's the game, and the inductions are that weekend. Canton, Ohio ain't a bad drive. It is a bad drive, but it's worth it. Out to Canton, Ohio, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Bears-Texans Hall of Fame game, and news from the NFL that doesn't have to do with rules. The Tennessee Titans, of course, traded for cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. He was on the franchise tag. They have already come to an agreement on a new deal. According to Ian Rappaport on Twitter, new Tennessee Titans cornerback L'Jarius Sneed is getting paid a 4-year, $76.4 million deal, includes $55 million guaranteed and $20 million at signing. L'Jarius Sneed finds the money he's looking for. The issue, though, no longer a Kansas City Chief and chasing Super Bowls right now with the Tennessee Titans, but certainly a figurehead and a big-time brick in that defense for the Tennessee Titans that looks to build for the future. L'Jarius Sneed, 4 years, $76.4 million, his new deal with the Tennessee Titans. We take the break. Back with your headlines and highlights coming up next on Overtime.